our first kickoff webinar. This is today's agenda. We're going to do a quick overview of what resources you have available, and we're going to look at an activity and sort of the anatomy of an activity and do a breakdown of it. And then we're going to turn our focus to this week's activity and go over the teacher to-do list, the student to-do list, and a step-by-step walkthrough so you know from start to finish exactly what you need to do to be successful. All right, we are going to start with looking at the cover for the coaches kit. So this is a very important document. Please download it if you haven't already. Ryan will show you how to do so later if you haven't. This kit has everything you're going to need to be in order to be successful for the challenge. It has all the rules. It has very helpful links, and we walk through lots of ways to build the code, download the code, and ways to engage with the activities. And this week we will focus on building a countdown timer and thinking about how many air punches you can do in 10 seconds. That was like 100, right?
So fast, you can't count them.
I know. I just did 100 and you couldn't see it. My hands are so fast. So there are many resources. It might feel like a lot of resources, but while designing this, we decided to go with the more the merrier so that you can pick and choose what you need to help the kids that you have. So we have a classroom tracking sheet, and that's where you, the teacher, will input the scores for your students. We have a student recorder so that students can keep a record of their own scores. We have code images so that kids can build the code if they want to. We have exercise videos that demonstrate what the different exercises look like. We have a submission form for the end of the week after you've tallied up all your points. And we have the fitness challenge homepage where that has a score tracker and it has lots of useful information. So the image you see on the right is when you open up the document, which you'll see later with Ryan, you're going to see that there's a link that will take you to a Google Drive where all the materials you'll need are located in one super spot. And you can, I recommend that you select them all and then download it all at once so you can have it on your desktop. It includes an offline version of the student score tracker and also an offline version of the student recorder. Likewise, you can also save it to your own personal Google Drive or just continue to use the links that are available throughout the document. Absolutely. Also, if you have any comments or questions at any point during this webinar or workshop, please feel free to write us in the chat. We will respond as soon as we can. And really, don't hesitate to ask questions, any type of questions. So we're going to look now at sort of the anatomy or the breakdown of an activity. We have the title and we have the objective for the week. So you want to count how many air punches. We're building a countdown timer. And then you'll see that we have the code image. So this is available also as a separate document so you can see the code really big in case you want to have it on a screen just by itself. And this shows you exactly what the code should look like in the end. Similarly, we have the code available for download if you want the objective to simply be on the physical side rather than coding. So that's ready to download. It's also located in the Google Drive that we just saw. And then we also have a demo video. So the video I was talking about, we have a dedicated YouTube channel for Unruly Splats, and we have videos demonstrating what all the exercises look like. So these will be linked in every activity for every week. You have your class tracking sheet. That's something you only really need to download once because we have all 3 weeks available as tabs in the document, as you will see later on. And we have a submit your 1 week scores. We have a dedicated document for submitting your scores every week. And similarly, it is linked to you for every activity for every week in case you lose it. So that's the basic sort of anatomy of each activity. And then don't feel overwhelmed by this to-do list. All of the items in this to-do list are also available in the PDF, the coaches kit. And so for each week, you as the teacher, you need to introduce the activity to your students. We have webinars such as this one. You can feel free to sign up for next week's webinar on Tuesday and the following week on Wednesday, where we go over each week's activity and how to code. You have the you have to record your students' scores, and in the document we already input all the formulas. So all you do is plug in the scores, and all the scores will be averaged for you. And then make sure you submit the final scores to Coach Crash, and then we will take those submissions, we'll attribute points, and then we have a score tracker on our challenge webpage that you can track and see how far along your class is going compared to the other schools in the competition. And then totally optional, but very fun, you feel free to tweet us at Unruly Studios with the hashtag Fall Fitness Challenge. So the more media that you can upload and the more that you can really like hype up our fall fitness challenge, the more points you can earn. And it's also just fun to see what other schools are doing. We want to see what you are doing. We want to see what your kids are doing. And likewise, I think it would be really great if you could see what other schools were doing. So feel free to follow the hashtag as well. For the student to-do list, kids just need to make sure that they either code or download the code so that they can have that part for the activity. And then they need to make sure they record their scores and attempts for that week's exercise. And then completely optional, they can do the found art challenge to earn extra points. All right, so now this is where Ryan is going to show you from start to finish how you can get ready and prepare and get started in your own classroom.
Yeah. Again, this is a lot of stuff all at the same time, but this will also be recorded and sent out and available, as well as all of this information is found in the portal and on the website, which you'll see in a moment.
And again, feel free to write us in the chat any sort of question you may have. And welcome to friends who have just joined us.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to start our Fall Fitness Challenge explanation by just pulling up the website. So this is the unrulysplats.com homepage. If we get rid of some of the pop-ups and head to the login, that will bring you to your portal, which hopefully you've spent a little bit of time looking at, or a lot. Your email's probably already in there if you've logged in before. And at the top of the portal, we have this very bright and clickable place to get the Fall Fitness Challenge resources. Oh, did that direct you back there?
Oh yeah, no, that takes you to the fitness challenge page. If you go back, Brian, it's under resources. So teaching resources in the side panel, and then it should take you straight to
Gotcha. Yep.
the
So
Fall Fitness Challenge. Yep.
That's a good thing. You're looking for Crash. And this document is called the Coach's Kit. Once you have this downloaded, it has everything in it that you could ever need to do or learn any part of the Fall Fitness Challenge. I'm going to go ahead and download that so that we can open it. In a different program. So let me go ahead and pull that up. And I'm going to get the app ready also, which is just the same old app.unrulysplats.com. When you first open the Fitness Challenge page, you have your cover, which is beautiful. To Anne.
Thank you.
And then, I'm lagging a little bit here, I think. There we go. All right, so the first page of the Coach's Kit outlines every bit of contest things that you might need and has a lot of the links that you'll use throughout the weeks.
I'm going to pause you real quick, Brian. On my end, it's very difficult to make out. Oh, there we go. I think, yeah, you're saying your side of the world, or
here,
the World Wide Web is lagging a little bit.
I can actually make that a little bit better. I'll change my optimization for the moment and change it back when we get to the actual.
Oh, perfect.
The actual thing. Yeah, so right here, under everything you need to succeed, there is a link which will bring you right to the Unruly Studios Fall Fitness Challenge Drive folder. So that's that folder that Tuan showed you that has all of the content, each broken out into its own file, every code image, every week's bit of code, including all of the bits of code together in one big activity. There's also a copy of the of the document in here if you need to download it again. So that right there is everything you'll need. It's also linked out anywhere that you might need that thing. So under the weekly checklist, it's introducing the activity, signing up for a workshop like you just have here, the class tracking sheet. That link directs you straight to the class tracking sheet, which we'll take a look at right now. So when you click that link, it brings you to the class tracking sheet. This first tab is an example tab, so obviously don't just submit all of our example names. In addition to those example names, we have the number of attempts, the high scores, the class averages, all of those things. Down here at the bottom, each tab is the week that you will use to track all of your students' attempts, high scores, and as you fill them in, these two green boxes will be your averages. So just as they are in the example, as you fill in the high scores and the attempts, these averages will update as you type them in. Yeah, so example may not do that. So that's the class tracking sheet. That's the most important thing for when you're tracking your students' attempts and high scores. After you've tracked your students' attempts and high scores, the link in each one of those tabs brings you straight to the submission form. Each week has its own submission form. They say at the top which week you're submitting for. They're each a different color, and you can fill them out. Very straightforward. Name, school name, attempts, high scores. Those are the two green boxes that we talked about. If you'd like to add any files or photos or videos, there is the ability to add there. And then just a little question and reminder that tagging hashtag Fall Fitness Challenge and at Unruly Studios will get you some bonus points. Just increase my pile of windows on my other monitor. So that's the class tracking sheet. We looked at the final score submission. That brings you straight back to the Fall Fitness Challenge, the Fitness Challenge webpage. On the student side, we have the student tracker, which looks a little bit different than the class tracker. It's what the students would use themselves to keep track as they're going. They just keep track with X's, number of attempts, however they like to, and then their eventual high score, they can also track right next to that. So as they're doing their attempts, they can mark them down and then eventually record their high score or best time and submit them to you.
And this document is available online through a Google Doc, but it's also downloadable as a PDF that students can fill in directly. And also feel free to print it out if that makes it easier, or use your own document. It's really up to you. Unfortunately, we don't get to be with you in the classroom. We just want to try our best to make sure we have all the tools available for you.
Yep, and again, this is why this seems like so many things all at the same time, is because we've offered a couple of different ways to take care of each aspect of this competition. So there's quite a few links, there's a lot of different places to look, but each one kind of loops back on itself and it's not as bad as it looks. Like we said earlier, the Found Art Challenge is a optional bonus points thing. We'll talk a little bit more about points when we get to that page, but you can click right there. It's also available in that full file download. The Found Art Challenge is from our old Fitness at Home pack. I say old, it was earlier this year, but it feels like a very long time ago. The Found Art Sculpture is a great activity. It has students rushing around looking for different objects of different colors to build their own found art sculpture.
And this activity exists because as a little girl, I hated any form of physical fitness, but I loved art. So this is for all the students who might begrudgingly run.
Yep, and the running part definitely comes from the fact that there's a countdown timer and a limited amount of time to find your items. It's very fast. At the bottom of page 1, there's a workshop schedule to have links to the future workshops if you want to attend those, so you get your week-by-week rundown of the code. The next page, you have that same outline that we just showed you, which exercises you're doing. Oop, I downloaded the wrong one, but so it's actually 10 seconds. It's worth noting. If you had downloaded this pack already, you would have one that says 15 seconds. I'm referring to this week's activity is how many air punches you can do in 10 seconds. This was corrected, but I just downloaded the wrong file. So that's worth noting that this is incorrect.
No, I'm glad you downloaded the wrong file, because in case you did download the older file, it says 15 seconds. but officially it should be 10 seconds.
Yep, and that's reflected both on the tracker sheet, the submission form, the website, everywhere else. We had it updated. This was an early on idea that it was 15 seconds, but we reduced it to 10. And if you download it after today, it'll be corrected, very likely. Each one of these links, so we use the same style text for links throughout the entire document. Every week, you have a video, which you just click. It'll pull up the YouTube video of that exercise. Again, we made this video earlier this year to help support that fitness at home, and we have it all linked to very specific times that you can show your class exactly how to do that exercise. Burpees, it's not necessarily common knowledge. I had that discussion a few days ago, actually. It's like, oh yeah, no, that's a thing. That's what those are.
Yeah, so I didn't know what mountain climbers or burpees were.
I also had no idea. Well, before working with splats, at least.
Now we know.
Yes. Or very early on in splats history, we learned the burpees and mountain climbers. So that's your outline week over week. So week 1 is just one activity, how many they can do in 10 seconds. Week 2 is how long does it take to do a number of an activity. And then week 3 has 3 different ways to track. It's how many jumping jacks can you do in 30 seconds, how many crunches, and then how long does it take you to do toe touches.
And just a quick note that it seems like week 3, I want you to not be intimidated by week 3. So week 3, what it is a combination of the code from week 1 and week 2, and it's been adapted so that students can create a fitness circuit. And we can talk more about it in the webinar for week 3. But I just want you to not be intimidated by the code when you see it, or be intimidated by the amount of exercises. It's because we want students to develop their, to do a routine of all the different activities at once.
Absolutely. The next section outlines the score, how the scores are earned. Again, there's another link to your tracking sheet to keep track of how your students are doing. At the top, we have 5 points for submitting your students' high scores every week. There's another 5 points for being the highest average scores. There's 4 points for the most average attempts. So if you attempt a lot but don't get the highest score, you can also get 4 points. There's 4 points for the second highest average. And then there's a couple of bonus point parts. Each photo or video uploaded social media, tagging us, will get you a bonus point. And then each video submission or photo submission with your weekly will also get you a bonus point. This last part is the Found Art Challenge. You can get up to 10 points per week doing the Found Art Challenge, 2 points per student who completes. So if you do it a couple of different times and take a few photos every time, those would be worth 2 points apiece, up to 10 points each week.
And there is a separate submission form for it.
Right. All right, so this is our week 1. This is what we're going to be working on. This is maybe the most complicated week for the code if you're taking on the coding lesson. It's still not too bad. It's definitely a manageable amount of code, but we'll talk through how to build it in a moment. But just starting at the top of the exercise page, we have how many air punches can you do in 10 seconds, the demo video for the air punches, the code download link to just download the code directly, which I will do. We'll get back to that in a moment. But I will download that code. When you click the download link, it brings up this very strange looking piece of text. When you want to download the file, you just go to the 3 dots and hit download. And that will save your text file for you on your computer that you can import, like you may have seen during one of your previous implementation meetings, workshops, or by reading our App 2.0 pack. The submission link for each week is also listed there, along with the class tracking sheet again. They're all duplicates, but they're all wherever you need them. And then we talk through, in as plain language as we can, how the code works and how to build it. And we'll go over all of this when we build the code. Just to scroll through the rest of the pack, we have week 2, week 3, and then if you wanted to treat Fitness Challenge as a full activity, you could lead it given these next two pages. It goes through each week, shows you what a virtual Splat app setup might look like, gives you the full code. So each week is its own section of the code, and then they can all be combined into one activity at the end if you like. Gives you a link to the score tracking sheet, And then at the end of the pack, we also have that found art sculpture activity ready for you there, even with a different download button. Okay, so that's the entirety of the coaches kit and everything you need to do with the Fall Fitness Challenge. We downloaded the code, but we're going to build it piece by piece. Don't mind the alpaca. Right, so I'm going to pull up our web app. Because I've logged in before, I am ready to go with Unruly Teacher, our demo and game building profile. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my computer sound and video clip so that we have a better chance at seeing how the splats work. What do we feel like today? I'm gonna stick with chartreuse mousse. Again, as we're going, if you have any questions, we're going too fast, something isn't right, please let us know in the chat. We'll circle back around and make sure everything is clear. Okay, so week 1 is count out loud. This is our verbal counting down from 10 to see how many exercises you can get in that 10 seconds. We're going to start by pulling out our when program starts block and lighting splat 1 with the color cyan. That is to show that that block is what you use for this activity. Each different way to track an exercise has a different color splat for it. Now that we have some blocks pulled out, I'm going to go ahead and save our project, just so we remember how to save our project. We're going to go with Fall Fitness Challenge Week 1. This week, you only need 1 splat to keep track of that exercise, and it definitely could be 1 or more players. And this project counts out loud from 10. We're going to save it, and then we're going to sync it to the game locker. That way it'll be available for everyone, whatever device you choose to use with your project. Let's go ahead and build the rest of the project and then save it again so we make sure it's updated. So when we start the program, that lights up the splat that we're going to use. To set up what the splat does, we need a function and a variable. The variable will be our number of what we count down from. So we're going to call it the variable count. This variable is just a number that we gave a name to and that we can change any time during our program. So we're going to need to set count to something. So we're going to pull that block out. Now we're going to contain a couple of blocks inside a function to make the program easier to read. That function is going to be called count out loud. And we're going to do that because all of this function is going to do is our counting out loud part of the code. Rather than have that just part of the code, it's nice to have it as a function block, and we can simplify what our code looks like. Inside this count out loud function, let's get that set up. So inside the count out loud function, we're going to have a while block. And inside that while block, we're going to have our say block, which is what will do the actual saying of the numbers. What we're saying is the count variable, so we need that count variable block. And we're going to snap that count variable block into that say block. After it says the number that we want it to say, we're going to want it to delay for a second to give the program a second to finish saying the number. If you don't use the delay block, it's just going to count the variables off very quickly, count the numbers off too quickly, and it will mess up the timing of your program. So after it says the count number, and we're going to initialize what that count number is here later, but once it says that count number and then delays for a second, we want it to lower that number by 1. This will have the effect of starting with 10, it'll say 10, and then lower it to 9, it'll say the number 9, lower that by 1 again, and then say the number 8, and so on until it gets to 0. and we want this to be -1. So rather than counting up, it will count down. We want it to keep doing this saying the number and delaying and reducing as long as the count is more than 0. So we're going to need a math block with a greater than or less than symbol. And we need our count variable to be greater than the number 0. So when we use the count out loud block, as long as our count function is more than 0, it'll say that number, wait a second, and then change that number by -1. So let's now use that in our program. So we want that to be inside a when splat pressed block so that you can hit your splat and you'll know it'll start your countdown. We want a little bit of feedback to show that you pressed that splat. So we want a light splat button, light splat block. This light splat block will turn the splat yellow when we press it. So it'll be cyan when the program starts. As you press it, it turns yellow and makes a sound. We want that sound to be ref whistle because it's a sports sound. And it's also very clear and pretty loud, so it's a very good feedback. So we grab our sports sound block, snap it into our sound block, get that ref whistle running. At this point in the program, we want to set our count variable to 10 because that's how many seconds we want our activity to run for. So when we press the splat, it'll go from cyan to yellow. It'll play the ref whistle sound, and then it'll set count to 10. If you left it right there, it wouldn't do much else. All you would hear is a ref whistle and nothing else. Now we're going to use our count out loud function and pull its block out and snap it into place. So right now, if we press the splat, it'll turn yellow, play our whistle sound, set our count variable to 10, and then start counting. After it's done counting, we want to add a little bit of delay so the program has a chance to catch up and you can finish completing your activity. We're going to use that ref whistle sound again. So we're going to right-click / long press on it, duplicate it, which will also duplicate the block that's snapped inside, and then snap that in at the bottom. And then we're going to turn the splat cyan again to show that it's ready to start over. With this activity, you can use the same splat over and over again without having to press run, potentially, and you can have back-to-back groups. So let's give that a quick test.
I'm ready to show off my skills.
I'm gonna worry about the code. So we press run. It turns.
Do you want to play that?
No. All right.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Did you keep track?
37.
Okay.
100.
Yes, I did 85. So you can see as we click run and we press our splat, it starts that countdown, starts at 10, reduces by 1, waits a second, and does that until you hear another whistle. So it's really, once you hear the whistle, you do your exercise as fast as you can while you're counting, and then you try again. So let's pull up our tracking sheet. We can do it right here. So we need our class tracking sheet and our student tracking sheet, which was linked in there. You said 3,700? Yes, 3,700. So we go to week 1. Inside of week 1, let's assume I made a copy of this. So you can do that by file, save, or file, make a copy. It takes a second to catch up. So you can write in here, student, in this case it'd be 2N, and 1 attempt to a high score of 3,700, which would give us a class average of 3,700. Now that would be probably pretty hard to beat, but it depends how many students you have.
I'm really carrying my class.
So, and then after you've filled in all of your student attempts, let's say that the average was, 4 or 16 or 16, and maybe someone else did 3,700. And there were a few attempts that people did. As you keep updating this, these averages will keep updating as you go. Once you have all of your students' attempts and high scores entered, you click your submission. The link shows up and you can submit your green box numbers there.
I used to teach 3rd grade, and my kids would just like randomly, when we had indoor recess because of rain, they would just see how many push-ups they could do or like how many random whatever they could do. It's like kids will take this and they'll be competitive and they'll have fun with it. And so make sure you send us photos and videos. We would love to see the kids in action doing these activities.
Yeah, and there's one important part that we want to go back and save our project. So we saved our project in the save section, and then we want to update our game locker so that it's saved in our game locker. Okay, and that's weeks 1, code and activity.